Good morning, everybody. We're at TBM Brakes today. Not Motion Raceworks, TBM down here in Florida. Motion South, as we would like to call it. And we got a special guest. Tom called me earlier this year and asked if we could put a set of TBM brakes on 6 Seconds 2.0. As you may or may not know, had a fire last year and basically torched the brakes. And he figured he'd use this as an opportunity to put some TBMs on it. So he said, bring the car down and we'll put some brakes on it. No better time than just a few days before the first ever sick week. So here we are. We're gonna take you guys along for the ride as we convert his car over to some TBM brakes. And how cool is it to have TBM brakes on the world's fastest street car? So here we go. There she is. Those look like tractor tires on there, Tom.
Those are the motors.
Full off-road. He's ready to go do some sand on the beach. They got
Yeah, we said there was a beach drive today during sick weeks.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
We got the shit box of doom. Trailer looks good, all wrapped up. What's up, Aiden? You ready to rock and roll this week, dude?
Yeah.
Are ya?
Be a great time.
How fast do you think you're gonna go?
Hoping to go in 8, then hoping to go in 7.
Oh, I like where your head's at. Something tells me that's all possible. Oh, nice roof rack too. That's a new addition, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Richie had it, and then I just cleaned it up a little bit and put it back on.
Nice. What a unit. This thing is so cool. It's just bare bones, man versus machine. A little bit of a legendary car in itself. And just cool in general. I'm glad you got her all polished up for the race.
Yep. He
Nice.
washed on this thing for days.
I can tell you used some rubbing compound and really got in there deep.
Yeah, I used it there and there.
You got a little bit aggressive. I can't wait to see this thing go. Last time you were basically at race week last with it, or maybe you do drag week.
No, race week was the last thing.
And you were really just getting your feet wet with the whole situation, huh?
Yeah, I was getting my licensing runs and everything. First time ever down the track, and so now I'm a little more comfortable and trying to get after it a little bit more.
Now you can come win a class, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think him and El Toro might be battling it out.
Oh yeah, I like that. We'll call it the Tetanus Nationals. So the ship box actually doesn't have TBM brakes yet. We didn't have enough time to get a set, and we couldn't rob them from the customers in line, but I think we'll get a set on this thing as long as Hayden's okay with it here soon. But for now, it looks cool in front of the
It's
sign.
going to be down here for a month, so.
Oh yeah,
it's down
perfect.
here. Yeah, this could just be the TBM parts vehicle. for a
Yeah,
month.
when you guys come pick it back up, we'll just have brakes on it for you.
In about 2,000 miles.
2,000 miles. yeah, I'll be cruising it daily at that point, so sorry you can't have it back. Literally the first hot rod in this new shop.
Really? One of yours hasn't been here?
None of mine have been here.
The Slova?
We've drove the Blue Nova here, but I haven't put it in the garage, so what a good way to christen it, man.
Yeah. Couldn't be any better, honestly.
So good to see this car back out. You excited to drive it again?
Oh, yeah. Last time, it's been almost a year, so.
I know the pain, man. I know the pain. When you're getting in a rhythm and something happens, it just takes the wind out of your sails, kind of. So we're going to get this thing up in the air and start switching these brakes over. I think after that, Tom might be headed back up testing somewhere, huh?
So, yeah, plans to be in Bradenton testing tomorrow, so.
Cool. All right, guys, so I want to kind of show you what we're installing today as we're getting started here. We have the kit unpackaged. Like I said, this is basically, you know, when you have a car with a fire and the stuff in the front, the seals are going to go bad. These brakes are a few years old, so we figured why not update them. But one thing I wanted to show you, we're actually putting spindle mount brakes on this car. So it has a spindle mount. There's no bolt pattern for the wheels like a traditional, you know, Nova or Camaro would have. There's just a spindle with a nut. That kind of creates a unique scenario because the way almost every spindle mount brake on a planet is, they actually only have one piston because there's just a very short clearance area between where the rotor is and where the wheel face is. With one piston, you're really sacrificing some clamping force and torque as far as getting the car stopped, and as well as braking performance, of course, because of that. TBM is pretty unique with our spindle mount kits because we actually have a true 2-piston caliper. We designed this from scratch. It's called our DR1 caliper. So there's opposing pistons creating better clamping force and torque on the actual rotor itself. In addition, we're going to use our Revolution rotor. Now, a lot of people think we made this rotor because it's lightweight. The true reason why we created this rotor is because it controls heat better. We don't really sacrifice any stopping surface area as far as a pad and a caliper and a rotor is concerned. The pad travels around and hits a main stopping area. The biggest reason for this is that it controls heat, so you'll never see these rotors warp or curl or anything. As the rotor gets hot, which is not a bad thing, it's fine if a rotor glows red, especially a properly made rotor. The heat is even across the rotor, so it doesn't have this tendency to cup and warp and everything like a lot of traditional completely round rotors. So that's kind of the reason why we have that. It has nothing to do with weight, really. I mean, yes, it is great, but overall, you know, for a car that's as demanding as this, it's going to stop from, what's this thing stop from, Tom?
260 something?
260 miles an hour. We want to disperse that heat equally because if you have a warped rotor, the pad is only contacting a certain part of it, so you don't have all of the braking capacity that you would normally have. So keeping that rotor flat and cool and heat managed is the main priority there, as well as putting 2 pistons on it so we can add as much clamping force as possible. We are going to use our #1 pad. This is a pad that we've been using quite a few years on everything from radial cars to my Nova. This pad is durable. It works extremely well, and it has a little bit of a life cycle, and it has a good heat control. And then we're going to upgrade the rear brakes to our F3 calipers, which is a stronger caliper than what he has right now. And then a lot of people don't know this, but we do have carbon pads for these as well, so it'll go good with his carbon rotors that he already has. These brakes are used by Antron Brown and a bunch of Top Fuel guys, and it's a cool option that we have for guys that have carbon rotors but want an upgraded caliper and stopping ability on the back. So we'll do that as well while we're here today. So one of the cool things about this kit that we started incorporating is a speed sensor capacity on it. This one being a spindle mount, it's not the same, but if you had a true hub mount, we have a little slot machined in here for our own unique Rife speed sensor so that you can bolt it right up and have a front wheel speed sensor. In the future, we're going to adapt our kit to be able to use, you know, to work with the spindle mount kits, but if you had a strut mount with a bolt pattern, we'd be able to get you taken care of on that. So if you're not familiar with spindle mounts, well, this is a one-piece deal. It bolts directly to the wheel versus the wheel bolting to a hub. We got to get this off, and then we'll put our hub with our rotors on it, and then we'll be in business. Big boys. Okay, so we got the first side installed. Probably the longest process of all of this is just making sure you have everything shimmed right. I'll show you here in just a second how you can flip the rotor over to make different spacing, and then you can shim calipers. With the packaging design of this DR1 caliper, shimming is a little bit more critical, especially if you want your no drag concept to be true. So spend a few minutes with this, and every time you do it, make sure you tighten everything down, because if things are loose, you might move it or shim it one way or another, and then it doesn't. You know, when you do finally tighten it up, it might move the tolerances one way or another. So I think we got this good to go, so we're gonna pull it apart, red Loctite it, put it back together, and then move on to the other side. All right, so one of the unique things we do with our rotors, one is for clearance for the bolts, and two is for offset for setting up the caliper versus the actual rotor itself, as we machine this recess right here in the caliper. Some packages need that so you can set the bolt head down further, and some of them need it to move the rotor this way or that way. So you can use it to your advantage when you're spacing stuff. Not only do you have the caliper shims to move things back and forth, but you can actually flip this as well. So that's typically enough to get you where you need to go to center everything. Because that's truly what you want to do, is get the rotor dead center of the middle of the caliper. Yeah, the pistons will equalize out, but from a non-drag standpoint and a pad life and pad usage standpoint, this is really beneficial, and it's worth taking your time to do it right. So, you know, there's manufacturing tolerances on everything you make, from spindles to the brakes to the wheels and everything else in between. This gives you the ultimate ability to adjust and get things right. So one of the unique things about Tom's car is that the master cylinder is actually mounted lower than the rear brakes in the car. So what that means is that when after you bleed everything, once you let off the pedal, the fluid travels back to the master cylinder. You get a good pedal when you're bleeding, but you don't always like keep a good pedal, right? So basically after you let off the pedal, the fluid kind of escaped, got away. That wasn't an issue before because the brakes were hanging up. So the pads were right there on the caliper essentially. The pistons weren't returning, but once we put the TBMs on and they have a self-returning piston, it became an issue because then all of a sudden your first pedal push after that became a little bit difficult, or it was real soft. But then you'd pump it a couple times and it would be fine. And the front brakes were fine, but the back brakes weren't. So what we did is we put one of these trusty TBM residual valves. It's a 2-pound residual valve. Now the benefit of this is it's going to keep the fluid in the back basically primed up against the pistons. The pistons will still pull back enough to where you don't have dragging brakes, but they'll have fluid ready for them so that it doesn't run back to the master cylinder. So now we have a good pedal feel. The pistons return, everything spins free. I think we're ready to put this all back together and make some test passes. So I think we got it all sorted out. Sometimes you have unique situations like this. Most vehicles, your master cylinder is the highest point on the car, so that could never happen / never would happen. Gravity and would keep all that fluid where it needs to be. But with unique situations like this, sometimes you got to come up with a new solution. So we have these in all different shapes and sizes and fitting options. We'll put them on our website. Again, most people won't ever need them. It's just a unique situation. So we're ready to roll, and we'll see how she does.